Good evening. Welcome to Mondays at the Museum. It is March 22nd. This is Season 2, Episode 5 edition. I'm Harriet Weber, Director of Operations at the Quincy Valley Historical Society and Museum. And we're really glad that you've tuned in with us tonight. We've been doing these Mondays at the Museum since about last April. Many music evenings, fun evenings to encourage you. But tonight marks a new shift. And tonight we're actually starting a whole series on emotional health. And I don't know about you, but this past year for me has been difficult in many ways, although there's so much to be grateful for, isn't there? But it has been a year of challenge, especially in terms of trying to deal with our emotional health, spiritual health, our mental health, how to navigate all the things that have been thrown our way. And so we're really happy to be able to kick off this series. It's going to be taught by Mr. Rob Bates, who owns Bates Counseling Service in Quincy. And he is a combat veteran. He's had many different life experiences, even though he's younger than I am. He has advanced degrees as well as is licensed in the state of Washington and is a certified mental health counselor. So Rob is going to be kicking off his series this evening, and it's going to be an overview tonight, and then in the month of April it will expand upon the many different points that he brings out tonight. So thank you for tuning in. Please give us your feedback. We really hope that this is something that's going to benefit and encourage all of us. And thanks for tuning in. Mr. Rob Bates.
Good evening. My name is Rob Bates. I am the owner and operator of Community Wellness Solutions. I am a licensed mental health counselor. I work here in Quincy, Washington, and I love engaging my community. Community Wellness Solutions takes a holistic approach in partnering with rural communities to address growing social justice concerns and instilling hope in our rural communities. We envision an environment where community partners engage with the community to disrupt substance abuse, poverty, and the cycle of violence which perpetuate dysfunction, pain, and trauma. Community Wellness Solutions envisions engaging our communities, building health and wellness, helping communities cope or prevent the related stressors that are experienced daily. So basically, we want to try to prevent the things that put you in the places where your emotional health is challenged. As we talk today, we're going to focus on emotional health and moving forward. We want to talk on the elements of positive emotional health versus negative, because if we focus on staying healthy, we're automatically avoiding being unhealthy. Mental health defined includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also determines how do we handle stress, relate to others, and make our choices. Today we're going to talk about the elements of emotional health and some simple ways we can address it and make our life a little bit better. The first element of emotional health is self-awareness. The first step is moving towards becoming emotionally healthy is self-awareness. When you practice self-awareness, you're able to see what habits and beliefs serve you and which do not. You can do so by engaging in self-reflection, self-analysis on a daily basis. Self-awareness is really a form of stepping back and figuring out what's going on in my life, how am I engaged in those things, and how can I make my life better. As we have that introspective look, and as we go through that process with ourselves, we recognize the things that are hurting us and the things that are healthy for us, and we're able to make changes accordingly. Self-awareness is putting a shining light on the parts of your internal world that might otherwise get buried down, pushed aside, or go unnoticed. And that's really important to understand because we all have this thing we call a shadow, which is the things about us that we do not like. It's very easy to focus on these things that we don't like and forget about the things that we do like about ourselves. We all have things that we like about ourselves. We need to focus on that part of ourselves and try to make that our focus for our daily life and realize those things we don't like about ourselves and be kind to ourselves as we go through the process of moving through it. Self-awareness takes a lot of courage because as we talk about those parts that we don't like about ourselves, it's really hard to face them. And if we don't face them, they take over our life and they become the focus of everything we do. As you get to know these darker parts of yourself, or a shadow, your inner critic is often likely to rise up and become part of your everyday life. Self-awareness helps us to silence or at least quiet that critic inside of us and have that conversation with ourselves and say, that may have been who I have been, or that may have been something I've done even right now, but it's not who I want to be in the future. And as we become self-aware and we continue to make these changes and we see these changes in ourselves moving forward, it's a lot easier to have that conversation. These contradictions of things that we like about ourselves and that we don't like about ourselves are part of the normal human process. And the more self-aware we are of ourselves and understanding that and accepting it, the better off we're going to be. A simple way to start practicing self-awareness is regularly checking in on yourself. Asking yourself questions such as, what am I feeling in my body right now? We all know those feelings we have when we start feeling anxiety, but we often ignore them and we go on with our everyday life instead of figuring out how we can make a change so we don't have to deal with the same issue or continue to go through this process. We ask ourselves, what are the thoughts running in my mind? What am I saying to myself? Most people, or a lot of people, when they experience this stress, instead of focusing on the positive and telling ourselves we're going to be okay, we have a negative self-talk, and we really tear into ourselves, and then we can't understand how we're not having a positive move forward. And then we never really ask ourselves, what are the consequences of the emotions I'm feeling right now? Often we want to bury them and we want to avoid them so we don't have to deal with them. As we deal with our emotions that we're self-aware of, we're able to live that happier and healthier life because we recognize there's things we don't want to do. And that leads us into our next element of emotional health, which is boundaries. Emotionally healthy people know their boundaries and aren't afraid to stick to them. They know by doing so, they're not only keeping themselves emotionally safe and happy, but they will also be a better service to others, even if this means saying no. 2 letters, and it's often the most difficult thing we ever say on a daily basis. Everyone struggles with the idea of saying the word no. It's okay that you have to do that. The question is, how do we make it a little bit easier ourselves, and how do we be kind to ourselves as we go through the process? The honest truth is, as we improve our ability to communicate boundaries, we also improve our self-esteem and the relationships with people around us. When people know what they can expect from us and what they can ask from us and what we will follow through with, they're more likely to understand and trust us as we go through this process. Having boundaries allows you to make yourself a priority, whether that's in self-care, career aspirations, or within our relationships. Boundaries can be flexible. We don't always want to flex our boundaries, but to be inflexible isn't a healthy way to have our life either. Just because we said no to something today doesn't mean we can't say yes to it tomorrow. Just because we said yes to something today doesn't mean we can't say no tomorrow. And that's because boundaries allow us to conserve our emotional energy. If we give too much of ourselves going through whatever we're going through, helping somebody else, and there's nothing left for us, how do we help ourselves? How do we get ourselves back to a point where we can recharge and be ready to meet our next day? Having a boundary and saying no to something when you know you don't have the energy for and you don't have time to recover from tomorrow or the next day or in the future is a great way to keep yourself safe. Boundaries give ourselves space to grow and be vulnerable. As we go through these boundary spaces, vulnerability becomes okay because we're safe. If you're not safe to tell somebody no, if you're not safe to explain why you're telling somebody no, then of course you're going to have a hard time with a boundary. But if the people around you accept your boundaries and you tell them you can't do something today, and they understand this, it'll help them as they help us move forward in our own lives. When we display our vulnerability to someone, we let them know that we're welcome to open up to sometime to us. They're welcome to open up to us sometimes when they need to as well. But sometimes when we use boundaries that are too big, we have to be ready to move into the next stage, which is the third element, which is to forgive and repair damaged relationships if possible. Emotionally healthy people forgive. It may take time, but they allow themselves to grieve and work through any of the emotions that come up from being hurt, and if possible, they repair the damaged relationships. But they also know when it's best to end a relationship for good. This is really difficult. But when we forgive somebody, it's not necessarily about that person that we're forgiving. It's actually about ourselves. That lack of forgiveness takes a lot of energy. And it takes a lot of anger, a lot of hate, and a lot of these emotions that we don't want to stay in every day to not forgive somebody. As we forgive a human being, we're able to move forward and be okay for ourselves. It is possible to forgive somebody else without denying or minimizing what they've done towards you. It doesn't take that onus off of them to become a different person, to work harder to not do that thing that they did that hurt us. Forgiving them just simply means I'm not going to continue to be angry with you as we go through this process. Forgiveness is more than others. It's important to remember that we have to forgive ourselves as we go through our lives. We all do things that we're not proud of. We all do make choices and have decisions that we would rather have differently in our future. Remember, forgive yourself. Attempt to always make a better decision. And if that comes up again, we just have to go through the process again. The next element of emotional health is exercise and eating well. The mind, body, and soul are all connected. Healthy people understand how important each is in regard to the other. That means not only expanding our mind, i.e., reading or learning something new, meditating, but also moving your body and fueling it properly, you will have the ability to focus, perform, and sleep better. There's a lot of research on this, and biological psychology is known really well. We can always look into this really easy idea of exercise and understand how easy it is to understand that exercise is going to be important to our well-being. We all know that if we can't sleep and we get up and we do something that tires us out and we lay back down, it will be easier to go to sleep. But research shows that exercise improves self-esteem, general mental health, and our emotional well-being. Research has shown that exercise is effective but often underused treatment for mild to moderate depression. Regular exercise has proven to reduce stress and anxiety as well as improve sleep. Always remember that we need to have this regular exercise because it not only keeps our body healthy, but keeps our mind healthy. Nutrition. A little known fact is that chemicals that are actually used inside of our brain are actually produced inside of our gut. So serotonin and all the other amazing biochemicals that move through our brain and make us happy actually come from the things that we eat. They're the basic building blocks that fuel our body, fuel our brain, and fuel our well-being. The better nutrition we have, the better building blocks we have as we go through these emotional moments that we need to move forward. If we are eating only processed foods, or we're eating only high-fat foods, or we're eating high-sugar foods that have these energies that don't keep us going for the long haul, we are not going to feel our best, which is going to take us emotionally into these places that we don't want to be. Many of the same food patterns that precede depression are the same food patterns that occur during depression. These patterns may include skipping meals, poor appetite, and a desire for sweets. All the things that are just not good for us as we go through this process. And sleep. We often recognize that we can be not the person we want to be if we don't sleep. If we slept poorly the night before, we'll wake up and be cranky, we can be irritable, we can be distracted, and we may not have the focus that we want to get through our day. Keeping a regular schedule and moving forward every day with that regulated schedule is the best way to maintain our sleep patterns. The next element of mental health would be to nurture your self-esteem. Healthy people understand their self-esteem will naturally go through highs and lows as the seasons change. They may not hold on to judgments about these changes, but they rather accept and nurture them. We all know that if we feel better about ourselves, we feel better in our everyday life. We're not talking about a fake narcissistic belief that we are amazing, but this grounded, well-being, knowledgeable idea that we are okay. Think about the conditions and situations that will either inflate or deflate your self-esteem. We know when we talk to certain people, we know as we go through our everyday life and do certain things, there are things that are going to be harder for us and things that are not going to be as hard. There are people that are harder for us to deal with, and there are people that are easier for us to deal with. As we figure out and delineate who these people are and what these activities and tasks are, and gain that self-awareness, we become better for ourselves as we go through this process. Common triggers for a lack of self-esteem could be a work or school presentation, just as I'm doing right here. If I didn't understand the information I was working with, I could understand being very anxious about this presentation and having low self-esteem. Luckily, I've spent a lot of time thinking and working within this field. Self-esteem can be affected by a crisis at work or at home. As we see things happen, we begin to wonder, am I okay? Finding ways to be okay, even in that crisis, even in that moment where you're struggling, are key to maintaining your self-esteem. As we go through that process, and we become aware of our thoughts and beliefs, we need to understand that there'll be negative thoughts and inaccurate thinking. As we challenge those inaccurate thoughts and that negative thinking, we're able to better bring ourselves to a point where we can nurture our self-esteem. We can then adjust our thoughts and beliefs and begin to move forward in our life. The next element of emotional health is practicing flexibility. Emotionally healthy people are adaptable. They can assess a new situation, how they're feeling, and other reactions to it. They can decide what is the best way to respond to the moment for them. Psychologically, flexibility expands most of our lives. Every relationship we have, every interaction we have, everything we go through on a daily basis, we need to be flexible with. We talked about this earlier with boundaries. As we become more okay with flexibility, as we become more okay with our boundaries, we understand where we're okay rounding a corner on a very firm edge that we've created to have that specific interaction with others. As we shift that mindset and become more flexible, we can understand, we can experience multiple emotions and be okay. Practicing flexibility on a daily basis is difficult because we're very set. We have a lot of shoulds that tell us who we should be and how we should be doing things. As we become flexible in those ideas and we address them as how I could be and how I could do things and how I am doing them today, and figure out how to change those things, we become more emotionally healthy and able to control our everyday life. That control of our everyday life is the element of health which is placing a high value on personal development. Healthy people understand the value of personal development. They grow and learn from mentors and people they admire. They spend a lot of time reading and listening to information about personal development so they can grow. Kind of like you're doing right now. As we learn and grow, we deconstruct our values and we understand who we are and how we do things and how we got here. As we understand how we got here, as we understand our past, we can look better at our future and decide who we want to be in the future. Here we live in Quincy and we can look all around us and we can see these fields. We can see how a seed is planted and 3 to 4 months later, or 5 or 6, that field is harvested and we have more food to sustain ourselves with. As we go through the process of tending those fields, we have work and we have life and we have these amazing relationships with the people we're going through this with. We ask ourselves questions like, what did your parents value? And what values did they impress on you? In regards to achievement, wealth, education, religion, status, independence, or appearance. As we ask these questions and we ask whether they were true for our parents and whether they're still true for ourselves, they allow us to grow and either A, more firmly attach to that idea and that value, or B, decide what our value is for ourselves. Every day, we get bombarded with ideas from popular culture that tell us who to be and how to be that person. As we go through personal development, we get to decide if that's who we are and how we are going to move forward with this information. Blindly accepting who somebody else tells you to be and who somebody else tells you to grow into is never okay as you begin to individuate yourself and move forward. That takes us into the eighth element of emotional health, which is staying positive. You will rarely see an emotionally healthy person complaining about their life. This doesn't mean they don't have hard moments. This doesn't mean they don't get upset. They just found a way to realize that this is part of the process and they're moving forward. Instead, you'll see someone who can accept the current hand they've been dealt with positively. They're problem solvers. They create opportunities to grow and do so willingly. Staying positive helps because our species survived because of our knack for detecting danger. But our worry-filled thoughts can present dangers of their own. Thinking can negatively drag down our moods, our actions, and even our health. If we aren't able to address our negative thoughts, they will become our mood. If we're able to actually stay positive and address that negative mood, it becomes that moment of the day versus my entire life. Depression and sadness are almost the same thing, but a healthy person will see sadness as a phase of their life. And a depressed person always feels sad because that is their life. Foster optimism in yourself as we go forward. Trying to be optimistic doesn't mean ignoring the uglier side of life. It just means focusing on the positive side as much as possible, and it gets easier with practice. Continue to look at those good things that are going on in your life. Even if you have 10 bad things going on in your life right now, or 10 things that you don't like about your life right now, we could probably find one thing that we can build on and go forward with. Search for the silver lining in everything. Even as we make mistakes, even as we make bad decisions, what we do know is that's not what we want to do in the future. And as we learn from that, and as we learn how we got into that moment, we're able to decide how we want to go forward and what that future is going to look like. Be positive. It will change your life. Being positive leads us into the eighth element of emotional health, or practicing gratitude. Practicing gratitude is a healthy way to attract more of the things you want in your life. If you want more love, be grateful for the love you already have. If you want more money, same thing. Healthy people understand and honor the law of attraction by practicing gratitude. They also understand by giving thanks, you are shifting your thoughts onto the positive rather than the negative. So just as we talked about being positive, when we're grateful for those positive moments and we lean into them, we're going to start gathering those moments the same way we would gather kernels of corn into a bowl, or as we would pick fruit and put it into a sack. As we gain these things, we make our life better and we move forward. Noticing and appreciating the positive in our lives offers a great mood boost. If you're sad, think about the things that are good in your life. That doesn't mean we're not sad, and it doesn't mean that it's not okay to be sad today. But remember those things that are good in life, and tomorrow we may be with those things again. Avoid negative thinking. Just because you're sad today doesn't mean you're going to be sad for the rest of your life. It pays to decrease the downers in your life. Avoid dwelling on them. and change that unhealthy self-talk, it helps you move forward. Ask yourself if that negative thought is really true. And be grateful for the things that we truly have. Remember the achievements that you have done in the past and the achievements that you will do in the future. It is rare that we will constantly be hamstrung forever, or impossible to be hamstrung forever by these things that we've done today. The 10th element of emotional health is allowing yourself to experience your emotions. If you're angry, allow yourself to be angry. This sounds counterproductive, but anger itself isn't the problem. There is such a thing as righteous anger. It's how we express that anger. Do we express it in a violent way that hurts others? Or do we tell somebody specifically, this behavior you did upset me and I feel really angry right now? That's okay. Expressing anger in a violent way, which hurts somebody else or hurts somebody's emotions, is not okay. The difference between emotionally healthy people and emotionally unhealthy is they recognize that if they feel a particular emotion and allow themselves time to process it, once it happens, they tend to feel better. Besides making who you are, emotions and feelings have some pretty important jobs when it comes to health. We can't be happy unless we experience sadness. If we're always happy, we don't really understand what that is. It doesn't really have value. It would be super convenient to always be happy, but then we would never actually appreciate that moment that we're in, and we would never actually understand what it's like for others or have empathy as we move forward. Feelings help us make smarter decisions. When we do something that makes us feel like we're not the best person we want to be or the person we want to be that day, we often make a different decision in the future. And that's okay. Feel that emotion and move forward. Feelings help us connect with others. They expose our vulnerabilities and allow us to open up in a great number of things. Not the least of which is allowing us the opportunity to strengthen human connections. As we become okay with that vulnerability and as we become okay exposing our emotions and discussing them with others, others feel the same with us. And as we discuss those moments of emotion, magic happens. And somehow we have a better relationship. As we have that better relationship, that allows us to communicate more and feel safer in more vulnerable moments. The 11th element of emotional health is stay active and productive. Healthy people are always trying something new, volunteering in an animal shelter, building a new shed, learning how to ski, or something that keeps their minds and bodies challenged. They know the beauty of life happens when you go out and live life. We can focus on our work, and we can focus on these things that overwhelm us and make us unhappy, but that doesn't help us as we try to stay emotionally healthy. Just as we talked today about the elements of emotional health, creating ways for yourself to stay productive and create better parts of your life will help you as you move forward. How can we take those steps? Everyone has things that they love to do. They have a hobby. They have tasks that they want to accomplish in their everyday life as they go forward. Making time for those tasks that keep us productive and make us fulfilled helps us be more emotionally healthy, and it's almost self-defining. When you feel more fulfilled by the things you're doing, your life feels better and you feel okay. When you're not doing the things that make you happy, your life doesn't feel better and you don't feel okay. So staying active and doing these things and being productive instead of sitting at home and sitting on the couch watching TV may be something that is important to your everyday. The 12th element of emotional health is knowing when to ask for help. Emotionally healthy people aren't afraid to ask for help, or rather, they ask despite feeling afraid. They recognize it's okay to get assistance at some point or another, whether it's to help with emotional issues, relationship advice, or they're in need of a dog sitter. When they need to, they will ask. Why is it so hard to ask for help? Reaching out for help, while it may seem simple, isn't easy. But why is it so hard to ask for help? Someone with a broken bone or the flu doesn't seem to have such a hard time saying that they feel bad. But as we go through this process of emotional health, it seems to be a little bit different. We've been culturally trained through our entire lives that we need to deal with this and we need to be stoic and we need to find a way to just work through it. Sometimes it's just not that simple. Sometimes it is. But as we go forward, we have to recognize when it's time to reach out for help. Don't wait till you come into a crisis. Don't wait till it's so overwhelming that you don't know what to do. As that anxiety gets to a point where it's very uncomfortable and you haven't been able to manage it in this way before, reach out. Find somebody that you can talk to, whether that be your pastor, whether that be a friend, your mom, your dad, your dog, or even a mental health therapist. Find a way to have that safe space to have that conversation. Actually, reaching out for help is a big step. Often it can relieve a lot of that emotional trauma, a lot of that emotional overwhelmingness that you're feeling in that moment, and make whatever you're going through just a little bit better. Knowing that you're not going to be in this all by yourself, and you're going to be okay as you go through this. Look for a support group. Look for a community. Look for other people that have been through this moment and ask them how they've gotten through it. Explore online. See what's out there and see how you can make it through this moment. When in crisis, if you come to this point, and you're having thoughts of suicide or hurting yourself or others, take action immediately. Call a crisis line, like the National Hotline for Suicide Prevention. Visit your nearest emergency room or call 911. Ask loved ones to stay with or near you. This is really important because most time as we go through this moment of crisis, it's but a moment. It will pass. Things will get better. Things will be different. They may not be like they were before, but they'll be better or different in the future, and it's going to be okay somehow. That takes us into the 13th element of emotional health, which is taking care of yourself. Self-care is vital in being emotionally healthy. These kinds of people know when to refuel their bodies, their minds, and their soul, and they aren't afraid to do so. They're also aware of their limitations, their triggers, and how to get back in balance. Understand what it means for you when you're not feeling okay. Is there physical signs such as headaches, low energy, upset stomachs, aches and pains, insomnia? Protect yourself when these things are going on. Figure out where this is from and make a change. Unfortunately, when things are causing us stress, most people try to push through them at all costs. This isn't always helpful. Yes, if there's an end to this stressor, yes, let's go ahead and finish this up. If you can recognize that a class is causing you stress and there is an end to the semester, if you recognize that you're on a walk and you're halfway through it, and you're going to get home, and then you're not going to feel so stressed about making it home or not. If you're in a relationship and you decide the end of the relationship, there's definitely an end to that. But when you can't find that end, find somebody to take care of. Know when to say stop. Know when to use your boundary, and know when to move forward. Know when to recharge yourself. A lot of us can take a lot, and we can go through that stressful moment and hold on to these things for as long as we possibly can. But if we don't help ourselves, nobody's going to help us in the future. If we don't help ourselves, we're not going to have any energy to help others in the future. As we go through this process, we have to practice those good emotional and healthy habits of keeping ourselves safe, happy, and healthy so that we can be okay for ourselves, taking care of our physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Notice the positives that are going on in your life. This goes back to keeping yourself positive. Notice the good things. While there may be an overwhelming amount of bad things going on in your life, of situations you're not happy with, or of situations you feel you have no control over. But there's always something you can do. There's always a boundary you can put up. There's always time you can take care of yourself. Remember that and stay positive. Gather strength from others. When you become emotionally overwhelmed and you need to take care of yourself, remember there are others in your circle or in your society or in your culture that can help you. Whether that be a pastor, a friend, your mom, your dad, or a therapist, reach out. As we do this, we remember the 14th element of emotional health, which is following our passions. Passions live within us, not to be ignored. Emotionally healthy people work towards living a fulfilled life, and a major part of that is following their passions. They understand that if they don't, they will always be longing for something that is fertile ground for falling into unhealthy ways. We focus on the things that we have to do on our everyday basis. All of us have jobs. All of us have lives, the things that we have to do, whether we like it or not. But there's also these things that we love to do, these passions that we get to follow, these people we get to be when we feel like our best self. Finding moments to follow these passions make us healthier. Finding a life that allows us to live in these passions makes us the healthiest. Get in that mode. Stay in that healthy place. Find that purpose and that meaning to keep yourself okay. If you have a reason to get up every day and you're able to be passionate about it, whether you have to do something you don't like for 8 hours and then come home and do that thing, or whether you get to do that thing for 8 hours, you're going to be a better, happier, healthier person emotionally, physically, and spiritually throughout your entire life. Give yourself realistic expectations as you do this. And continue to build new skills, as they will always make you better. The final element of emotional health is loving animals. If you don't own and love a cat, dog, rabbit, iguana, snake, or horse, you don't have to own one to be emotionally healthy. Just appreciating the natural beings of life makes you a better person. There's a lot of research on pets and mental health. The first research on pets and mental health was published 30 years ago by a psychologist from Purdue University. He discusses the fact that when you pet a friendly dog, your blood pressure reduces, your heart rate slows, your breathing becomes more regular, and your muscle tension relaxes. Somewhere in our evolutionary biology, we have this deep connection to animals. We are an animal as we go through our everyday life. and they help us reduce our stress and create well-being. Scientists and therapists do animal-assisted therapy because animals are extremely intuitive to who we are. And they know if they come and give us their energy and they love on us, we will love on them. And as we love on them, we seem to come better. We see this so often, even myself with my loving chocolate lab, who will know if I'm in a bad mood and come over and rub her head on me. Whether I like it or not, I'm going to be petting my dog. Interacting with our pets lowers our stress hormones. Even with myself, as I lower my stress as I interact with my animal, it makes me a happier, healthier, better person. Pets protect against childhood anxiety. We can all think about this. When we were kids, even if we couldn't talk to the people around us, we often talked to our animals. I often talk to my own dog. She doesn't repeat anything I say, so it's really safe to talk to her. She makes it a really great thing to do. Pets increase our sense of self-esteem. Just having that place to express ourselves that's safe, that we can be vulnerable and have that conversation, it does seem better, even though we feel a little bit crazier as we do it. Cats and dogs are great examples of living in that moment. Your cat doesn't think ahead and it doesn't feel anxiety about the things it's done in the past. It's just right there. And the same with your dogs and any other animal that you get to go with. As we live right here in this moment, we're more grounded and we're happier. Pets support recovery from mental illness because we connect with them so easily. Dogs love unconditionally. They love us no matter what, and they will always come back. And often as we go through that recovery, having that connection is what makes our life and our ability to go forward. Pets help us build healthy habits. We all know that our dog or our cat has to go out and use the bathroom. If they do come in the house and they're using a litter box for a cat, we know that litter box has to be changed. The pets have to be eaten. They have to be walked. They have to have water. As we go through these processes of making sure that they have these things that they need, things get a little bit better because we have a schedule for ourselves. Even if we spend our entire day at a job we don't enjoy, we can still look forward to going home and making sure we get home in time to feed our dog or to let them out to go to the bathroom. Our pets help us build relationship skills. That vulnerability we have with that animal that loves us unconditionally models for us that vulnerability that we can have with a human being that we can love unconditionally. We learn to engage and we gain self-awareness of the cues that we go through as we go through emotional states. And they make us easier to socialize, whether we're socializing with our animals or whether we end up with other animal lovers who love our dog. And we have our conversation about our dog or cat, our iguana, rat, or snake. And most importantly, and I've mentioned it multiple times over, animals give us unconditional love. And that unconditional love is so important to our emotional well-being. As human beings, we just want to be loved. And to have that animal that will connect with us in a way that makes us feel okay, that is grounding. And that will give us emotional health. If you're at a point of your emotional health where you feel like you need more help, listed here on the screen, I have several places where you could actually go to get mental health assistance. Here in the county, we have Brand Integrated Services with multiple therapists throughout the entire area, spread from Grand Coulee to Mattawa to Royal City and here in Quincy and even in Moses Lake. They're clinically trained to help you sit down and talk through whatever emotions you're going through. Additionally, we have therapists here in the area that are also in private practice, such as Nicole Prentice with her phone number here, and Ephrata, Pam Dugan here in Quincy, and then myself here in Quincy. If you feel like you're having an emotional struggle that you're unable to overcome by yourself, reach out, get help. Let's get you to a place where you're more emotionally healthy and you can handle your struggles on a daily basis without help. As we go forward, let's continue this discussion. Mental health isn't just going to be this one presentation. Now that we've discussed an overview of what these elements of emotional health are, we're going to look into moving forward and creating more directed, I'm going to try that one again. I should have written a script for this page. As we go forward, we're going to continue to discuss mental health. This discussion is going to be continued by further discussion of the elements of mental health, which is going to continue to be a series on this channel. As we discuss this, send emails in and let's understand what your questions are, so as we discuss those elements, we can go more in depth and make sure we cover that and tell you and get you more answers or get more places to look for the answers that you need. I really look forward to continuing this, and I hope to hear from you. Thank you.
Well, thank you again for tuning in. I hope that session was really helpful to you. And I encourage you to check back in with us in the month of April, where he will be doing more in-depth sessions every Monday night that will be airing. Next Monday, we are taking a little break from this series, and it will be our Easter episode. So we've got some music next Monday night, as well as we'll ring the church bell, and we have some greetings and a little devotional from a pastor in town. So we've got Glenda Bishop on piano, we have Riley Youngren on cello, Diane Saunders on violin. So we have some beautiful music and some inspirational encouragement for you. That will be next Monday, the 29th of March. So thanks again for tuning in. Please, again, give us your feedback. We love to know how these Mondays at the museum are encouraging you, and just really appreciate all your support. So, good night. Thank you.